The honor always belongs to the quarterbacks amongst us. A couple QBs finding work on opposite coasts. Coming off his resurgent season, Sam Darnold will be handed the keys to the car in Seattle. It's a 3-year deal worth just over $100 million there, while in East Rutherford, Justin Fields becomes the heir to a vacant throne. The former Bear, by way of Pittsburgh, fetching $40 million over 2 with $30 guaranteed, now a Jet. As for the edge benders, Josh Sweat did himself some monetary favors on Super Bowl Sunday with 2.5 sacks and 6 tackles. The former Bird flying to the desert where he will bolster a pass rush that needs him. It's a 4-year deal for Sweat worth $76 million, who reunites with his former DC, now Cardinal head coach, Jonathan Gannon. Others stayed put, with the Bucs finding common ground with veteran wideout Chris Godwin. The 8-year veteran, who spent the entirety of his career in Tampa, working his way back from a dislocated ankle, but still getting paid. Godwin will earn $22 per over the next 3 seasons, with the first 2 years coming in guarantees. Trades in principle also a part of the tampering, and this one a blockbuster. A massive haul heading from Washington to Houston in return for the 30-year-old tackle in Laramie Tunsil. The Commanders shipping a 3rd and 7th this season, as well as a 2nd and 4th next year for the 5-time Pro Bowler, who will look to shore up protection for the reigning Offensive Rookie of the Year. Here to talk winners and losers, I find myself always a winner when with Bryant, McFadden, and Emory Hunt. Gentlemen, great to be with you here. As you can see, tampering, we are open for business. Let's dive right in with biggest winner here, Emory, because so much happened across the NFL landscape. Hard to distill it down to one, but who's the one you can't stop thinking about right now?
The Chicago Bears, Joe, and not because I'm on set with you, but this is why. Free agency is about getting better, but also setting the table for what you can do in the draft and just creating those opportunities. We saw what the problem was last year for Chicago, the offensive line, more in particular the interior offensive line. They went out and got 3 legit starters along that interior offensive line. Guard, center, guard is where offense happens. When you think about the Saints teams with Drew Brees, that's where they would thrive, guard, center, guard. And you can get good tackles. I think Braxton Jones at left tackle was the easy target, but guard, center, guard is where they had to get better. They did just that. And on the defense side of football, Dale Adingbo did a great job in his last season, finally healthy with the Indianapolis Colts. They kind of got caught in that weird area of, man, we want to re-sign this guy because he was injured when we got him, and now he's on a trend upwards. And you also bring in Grady Jarrett, who was a tremendous leader and great player for the Atlanta Falcons. The Bears got strong down their battery. I think the Bears are open for business at pick number 10 in the NFL draft, giving themselves a wide array of options for them. Great job for Chicago.
Yeah, as someone who often keeps their ear to the ground there in Chicago, pairing some pressure alongside Montez Sweat was a key there. Also shored up a 3 technique coming from Atlanta as well. The center gets locked down, so taking care of things inside out. Ryan Poles definitely focused on the big fellas here with the tampering window open. Your biggest winner, Bryant McFadden, is who?
The New England Patriots. When you came into this offseason with the most cap space available, we had to make sure we monitor. Will you be careless in your spending, or will you really be smart in how you spend the money? Well, so far, they've done a great job in spending this money wisely. Looking at adding a guy in Milton Williams, the most coveted interior defensive lineman in free agency. Only 26 years old, you gave him $26 million. 25 years old, I'm sorry, $26 million. You look at other areas, Carlton Davis, another 3-year deal for $60. Harold Landry, a guy that has been coached by Coach Verbal before with Tennessee. He's another guy that can put pressure on opposing quarterbacks. Robert Spillane and Morgan Moses. So you look at them and trying to improve the defense. This was a defense a year ago that only had 104 pressures on opposing quarterbacks. That was 3rd worst. They only had 28 sacks, which was dead last. So clearly the emphasis was get better on the defensive side and find guys that can put pressure on opposing quarterbacks and find guys that can cover against some of these high elite-like wide receivers they will see in 2025. So great job by the New England Patriots in spending their money wisely.
Yeah, checked a lot of boxes and places of need, I will say, of Robert Spillane. Willing tackler. He'll meet you in the hole.
Right.
He'll meet you. I don't know if you see right there. That's the Fenwick Shield. That's a fryer up one time for Robert Spillane, representing the city well. We do need to get to losers here, and oftentimes it's whether you sat on your hands and did not spend the money, or a team that maybe made a move that you didn't love. Emory, who's the one that's got you scratching your head right now, saying, did you really take advantage of the opportunity here on Monday?
I would say the Atlanta Falcons, for whom they lost. Drew Dalman is a huge loss because, not because he's a fantastic center and he helped spearhead their run game and their offense, but you have a young quarterback that you're still breaking in Michael Penix, and that was the other quarterback on the field in your starting center. So now you have to find some way to get that back into the proper side of things for your offense to really flow and function. And on defense, just losing Grady Jarrett, you lose that leadership. I understand they're big fans of Rook Oro, the defensive lineman. Very tough to say, but I think I nailed it. You know, and also you have David Onyemata. I love their linebackers. There's a lot of speed and athleticism. This is still a very good defense, but Jarrett, the locker room guy, the leadership is huge in keeping everything tied together, which is probably why they went on that run toward the back end of the season. So we don't know the significance of these two losses, but man, I know we have a whole nother spring and summer of free agency to still sign players in the draft on the back end of that. But Atlanta right now, day one, based on who they lost, I say is a loser.
Mac, a thought on Atlanta and then your loser.
Yeah, when you look at Atlanta, losing a guy in Grady Jarrett, he's an ultimate leader on off the football field. So now you look at the defense already having concerns. You lose your best defensive lineman, you know, in terms of what he can do in run stopping, not to mention putting pressure on opposing quarterbacks. So far, Atlanta has really done nothing, to Emory's point. They've lost more than what they've added, not to mention they still have a lot of money tied up in their backup quarterback in Kirk Cousins. So it's going to be very intriguing to see what Atlanta does, because every other team in their division has made moves to improve their team. You can't say the same about the Atlanta Falcons. In terms of my biggest loser, right now in the great state of Texas, down in Houston, they're enjoying the rodeo. Everyone is having fun. They're dancing. They're eating smoked neck bones and turkey wings. They're enjoying themselves. But hearing the news today about them trading away their best offensive lineman might make a few fans in Houston cry. The Houston Texans, they're my biggest loser because of the trade. Now, hear me out. They got a nice haul in return for Laramie Tunsil. You talk about picks this draft and next year's draft as well. But when you talk about losing your best offensive lineman from a below-average offensive line unit last year, and we saw how that hurt the development of their young quarterback in C.J. Stroud, that really makes you scratch your head. You look at C.J. Stroud. He was pressured on 37% of his drop back passes. That's fifth worst in the National Football League in 2024. He was sacked 54 times. That's third worst in the National Football League. Now you move his best short-handed left tackle, his best offensive lineman, you move him from the organization, and you don't have a guaranteed game plan in place in terms of who will replace him. So me personally, I know draft picks are a high commodity, but did it really make sense in moving a guy, Laramie Tunsil, who's still in the prime of his career, making sure that you can protect your young quarterback? Because one thing we saw in terms of the difference between year one with C.J. Stroud and year two, the inability to stand comfortable in the pocket. Now you moved his best friend on the offense in Laramie Tunsil, and who knows who steps into his shoes. But until that happens, right now, they're my biggest loser.
Well, they don't know who it will be just yet, but big shoes to fill, as we saw one of the top 5 pass blockers in this league last year at that position. Going to be hard to find that sort of a sure thing to put next to your franchise quarterback. I'm just picturing C.J. Stroud looking down at the phone. I know there was some news that made us say, wow, today. That was a notification I'm not sure C.J. was looking forward to. We do still have plenty to look forward to with some names still floating out there. Your best available Emory Hunt takes us where? Mekhi
Becton, the offensive lineman from the Philadelphia Eagles, the Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles. And the reason why this is unique for me, because we just talked about Laramie Tunsil and how could you let him walk out the door. Maybe Mekhi Becton will remain in Philadelphia, but I kind of look at this like how the Eric Flowers situation kind of played itself out when he left New York and went to Washington. And when he went to Washington, he changed from tackle to guard. It became a very good guard for the Commanders. And Becton went from tackle to guard in Philly. It became an outstanding guard.
It's a great story.
If he wants to stay in Philly and remain that guard, outstanding. Or if he wants to test free agency and does a team want to move him back to tackle, does he want to go back to tackle, or does he want to, stay
under the full screen?
Right, exactly. So if I'm Mekhi Becton, I'm like, I can stay with the team that I won a championship with, I had the most success, or I can go test that money and probably play left tackle for the Houston Texans.
I am told that they are paying a pretty penny for guards these days as well. Saw that sort of success there and saw the confetti falling down on him. Emotional moments there from Mekhi Becton. A little bit more context to the no under the full screen here, Mac, and then also your best available.
No, I understand left tackle money is different than guard money, but Mekhi, stay put at guard because seems like playing in that tight, close space, it helped him in terms of his consistency. When you go out to that left tackle, there's more space. You got to be nimble. You got to be able to get back and make sure you have a solid foundation. So me personally, I understand that's very, very intriguing in terms of left tackle money, but it seems like he can be a Pro Bowl type player playing the guard based on the success he had a year ago with the Eagles. And if I'm Mekhi Becton, you might get more money elsewhere, but it's okay in taking less to be able to have the longevity that you would like to have playing alongside the offensive line mates that he had the luxury of winning a championship with in Philly. So that would be my advice to Mekhi Becton. But heck, I'm not getting actually 30 million maybe thrown at me, so it's easy for me to say that right now.
I'm going to need you. I'm going to need you in the green room either way next season, Max. So we'll talk. We'll talk offline. I do need your best available. When you look at what's out in front of us free agency-wise, and again, these deals don't become official until 4 o'clock on Wednesday when the signing period opens. I love the idea of legal tampering. So let's tamper a bit more. Where do your eyes go when you look at those still available?
Javon Holland, 4-year player for the Miami Dolphins. I really had an outstanding career. Now, last year was his I would say the worst year of what he did in Miami, dealing with injuries and things like that. But when you look at his overall concept in terms of what he meant to the Miami Dolphins organization, he's a do-it-all safety. He's a guy that's not a liability in coverage. He's a tackling machine. He forces turnovers. He's a guy that you want to have in your secondary, not to mention he's a great communicator in terms of playing the post, the ultimate traffic cop, making sure he lines everyone up in the defense and being able to dissect things, pre-snap alignment, and just playing fast to the football. So Javon Holland is a really, really good football player that hasn't found a home yet. If you look at the Minnesota Vikings, Emory, you talked about the Vikings, losing Cam Bynum earlier in free agency today. That's an opening for a guy like a Javon Holland when you look at how they play the game there in Minnesota with the blitz concepts and oftentimes utilizing their safeties close to the box or utilizing them as an extra hat in a blitz concept. That's who Javon Holland has been for the Miami Dolphins, and I expect to see a nice deal coming for him sooner than later.
Fantastic work as always, fellas. As the tampering continues, we will continue to come to you both for it all. More coming here on CBS Sports HQ as we take a look at Pete Prisco's top 10 free agents coming into this cycle. All but one, for the aforementioned Holland, finding a deal or finding a tag over these last couple weeks. Holland, as said earlier on our air by Pete Prisco, the player, not the problem. The number might be. We'll see what he lands on in the not too distant future.